Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving deep into the chilling philosophy of Lovecraftian horror. This is a kind of fear that skips the jump scares and goes straight for a sense of profound, unsettling dread that gets right under your skin. So let's get right into it. When you hear that word Lovecraftian, what pops into your head? Probably some giant tentacled monster like Cthulhu rising from the ocean, right? But here's the thing, that's just scratching the surface. The real terror isn't the monster you can see. No, the real horror is the idea of this massive, totally uncaring universe that, well, it doesn't even know you're here. It's that slow, creeping feeling that all of humanity, everything we've ever done, is just a meaningless little accident, like a cosmic rounding error. So to really get this, we've got to look at how its creator, H.P. Lovecraft, basically reinvented horror. He took it from, ghosts and haunted houses to something way more unsettling, something that really messes with your head. Think about it like this. In old-school Gothic horror, your Draculas, your Frankensteins, the universe has rules. There's good, there's evil. You break a rule, you get punished. The universe cares enough to punish you. But cosmic horror, it just throws all of that out the window. It's a universe that doesn't even notice you're there. You're like an ant on the sidewalk. The giant foot that's about to crush you isn't evil, it's just walk. And yeah, this absolutely terrifying idea, it actually has a name. It's the philosophical engine that makes all these weird, disturbing stories run. It's called Cosmicism, and what it boils down to is this: the belief that everything we think is important, our laws, our feelings, our ideas of right and wrong, our entire existence, it has zero meaning in the grand scheme of things. All of human achievement, it's like we're just scribbling in the margins of a book written in a language we can't even begin to understand. And this quote from Lovecraft himself it nails it. It really gets to the core of what's so scary. See, it's not the monster that's going to break your mind. It's the knowledge. It's that one moment of terrible clarity when you finally truly understand how completely and utterly irrelevant you are. That's the revelation that drives you mad. Now, a philosophy this bleak doesn't just pop up out of thin air. It was born from some very real, very painful things in Lovecraft's own life, a life that was, frankly, full of instability and loss. And you can literally map it out. I mean, look at this. His father was institutionalized, and that directly fed into these constant themes of madness being passed down through generations, of tainted blood. Then, his family lost their ancestral home, and suddenly his stories are filled with this fear of decay, of losing your place in the world. And his own personal breakdowns, well, they gave us all those brilliant but super isolated, fragile characters you see again and again. His life really was the blueprint for his horror. Okay, so here's a really interesting part of the story. Lovecraft didn't build this terrifying universe all by himself. He actually created what he called a pseudo-mythology, which is basically a shared sandbox for his writer friends to come and play in. And this group, we call them the Lovecraft Circle now, had some heavy hitters. We're talking Robert Bloch, the guy who wrote Psycho. And through tons and tons of letters, they all borrowed from each other. They'd use each other as made-up gods, these forbidden ancient books, these spooky New England towns. And by doing that, they built this incredible, interconnected world that felt just eerily real. But then Lovecraft died, and one of his friends, August Derleth, took over and did something pretty controversial. He basically reshaped this whole amoral universe into a more classic good versus evil story. Suddenly, you've got these good elder gods fighting the evil old ones. And to this day, a lot of hardcore fans will tell you that this completely betrayed the whole point. It took away that core idea of cosmic indifference, the very thing that made the horror so unique. Still, the influence of this whole shared nightmare is just huge. And you can't talk about that influence without talking about the king of modern horror himself, Stephen King. He's been very open about how much Lovecraft inspired him. What King does so brilliantly is take that massive cosmic scale and ground it in his own familiar, creepy New England settings. Take Pennywise from It. He's not just a scary clown, right? No, he's this ancient, shape-shifting being from a void outside our universe. They call it the macroverse, and its reasons for doing what it does, they're just as alien and impossible for us to understand as any of Lovecraft's great old ones. Okay, we have to talk about something else, though, because it is absolutely impossible to discuss Lovecraft's legacy without confronting the man's own, his own ugly personal horrors. Let's just be blunt about it. H.P. Lovecraft was a virulent racist and xenophobe. And I mean, even for the early 20th century, his views were extreme. And that intense gut-level fear he had of the other, of anyone different from him, it's not just a footnote. It's woven deep into the very DNA of his cosmic horror. His personal prejudices literally became his monsters. You see his profound fear of racial mixing? That becomes the entire plot of The Shadow over Innsmouth with its horrifying human-fish-monster hybrids. The terror he felt living among diverse immigrant communities in Brooklyn, that directly inspired the story The Horror at Red Hook. You start to see a pattern. For Lovecraft, the terrifying unknown from beyond the stars was often just a stand-in for people who didn't look like him. But that's not where this story ends, because in recent years, a whole new generation of writers and creators have started to confront this toxic legacy head-on. And what's so cool is that they're using Lovecraft's own tools, his own universe, to do it. They're basically flipping the script. They're taking his work and putting the very people he marginalized and turned into monsters right at the center of the story. And in doing that, they're creating something totally new and, frankly, incredibly powerful. It's this amazing reversal. You have authors like Victor Lavallee with The Ballad of Black Tom, or Matt Ruff with Lovecraft Country. They use the Lovecraftian framework to make a profound point. For a lot of people, the real, soul-crushing, irrational horror isn't some tentacled beast from another dimension. It's the everyday, systemic horror of racism right here on Earth. And this evolution, it's not just in books anymore. It is absolutely thriving in movies and video games, which have found these new, really visceral ways to make you feel that unique cosmic dread. Take a game like Bloodborne. It turns the philosophy into an actual game mechanic. The more insight you get into how the world really works, the weaker you become. It doesn't help you. It just lets you see more of the horrors, making the game harder. Or a movie like Annihilation. That's pure ecological cosmic horror. It's not an evil alien force. It's just an indifferent natural phenomenon that transforms and erases people, not because it's angry, but just because that's what it does. Which kind of brings us full circle. In our world, where science shows us a universe that's bigger, weirder, and more complex than we ever imagined, doesn't Lovecraft's core fear feel more relevant than ever? That fear that we're just a tiny, meaningless accident in a silent, indifferent cosmos? Maybe the ultimate horror isn't that there's something out there coming to get us. Maybe it's that there's nothing out there that cares about us at all.